Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Soccer Podcast. I'm Frazer Krohn. As you can probably tell, I'm not with my co-host Tim Wheaton again. He's still away, so we'll be doing a solo podcast this week. But it was too good of an opportunity to miss, breaking down UFC Vegas 57, Matthias Gamrot versus Arman Tsarukyan. We'll give a bit of an overview on the card, but then what we'll really focus on is UFC 276. It's a phenomenal card. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. UFC Vegas 57, Gamrot versus Tsarukyan. The official scorecard saw Gamrot win by unanimous decision. However, I've seen it scored 3-2 either way. I don't think a 3-2 scorecard for Tsarukyan is out of the realms of possibility, and I don't think the 3-2 scorecard for Gamrot was either. Also seen it as wide as 4-1 to Tsarukyan. It was a brilliant fight. There was some really, really good scrambles throughout the fight. I think it's safe to say that Arman Tsarukyan will fight for a UFC title at some point in his career. Whether he'll win it or not, I'm not quite sure. But he's only 25 and he hasn't nearly hit his peak yet, and nor did his stock go down after the loss in the main event. It's his first ever main event. Prior to this, he'd only lost to Islam Makhachev, and he extended Makhachev across the 3 rounds. What's next for Arman Tsarukyan? I think Dan Hooker or the loser of Rafael Fiziev versus Rafael Adesanya. So I don't think he needs to take a fight outside of the rankings. I think that the performance itself was really, really good. And like I say, a lot of people, scored it in favor of Arman Tsarukyan. So you can understand why he was a little bit disappointed. But he'll come again. He'll compete for a belt, and he'll more than likely win a belt. For Matthias Gamrot, he rose to the occasion after a tough first round where he was largely out wrestled, and showed a lot of quality wrestling, good ground game, and reasonable striking. Although he did headhunt a lot in this fight. The official stats, let me just pull them up here, do show that he did headlock a lot more than Arman Tsarukyan. Arman Tsarukyan did mix it up, brutal kicks to the body from Tsarukyan, and Gamrot. 68 strikes to the head, only 9 strikes to the body, and 4 strikes to the legs. If we compare that to that of Tsarukyan, 43 strikes to the head, 39 strikes to the body, and 13 to the legs. So Arman Tsarukyan mixed up far more than Matthias Gamrot, and Gamrot was outstruck in each and every round as far as significant strikes are concerned. But that's not how we judge fights. We judge fights on overall, damage, damage, and control time after that. And obviously, the judges saw it in favor of Matthias Gamrot. For Gamrot, I think the call out of Justin Gaethje was big. Does Gaethje take that fight? I'm not sure. It's a big risk for Justin Gaethje. I'd love to see him against Justin Gaethje or the Fiziev versus Dos Anjos winner. They're in that kind of difficult position at the moment where we pretty much know that it's going to be Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira for the belt on Fight Island in, I think that's October time. And then you've got Dustin Poirier, who we don't know what Justin's doing at the moment. You've got Justin Gaethje just coming off the loss in the title fight. So they're in that sort of second fiddle. You've got Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, and Conor McGregor still in and around there. So it's important for these guys to knock off all other contenders like Leon Edwards has done, and eventually get that title shot that they so desire. In the co-main event, Shavkat Rakhmonov going to Shavkat Rakhmonov. He was quality, he was dominant, he was controlling, he was mauling. He didn't give Magny space to breathe, space to move in that first round, and when he did, when he was given a little bit of space, he received a lot of ground and pound Magny at the hands of Shavkat. That first round, although it wasn't the most let's say action-packed first round, 27 strikes landed by Shavkat, 4 minutes 43 control time. Then you go into the second round, 29 strikes landed, 4 minutes 23 control time, and he then finished that with a guillotine right at the death of the second round. I love his style. You know, we've seen that he can strike with the best, or we've seen that he can strike with good strikers. Neil Magny was certainly the biggest test of his career. You know, I alluded to that in my preview piece, that if you guys want to go back and read that, yeah, you know, I'll link it down below. But you know, give him Thompson, give him Vicente Luque. I wouldn't mind seeing him against Sean Brady, Bilal Muhammad, or Gilbert Burns. Shavkat is the most exciting prospect that we've had in a number of years, outside of maybe Khamzat Chimaev. And I can see Khamzat versus Shavkat in a couple of years' time. You know, Khamzat's on a slightly different trajectory than Shavkat at the moment. But Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think he progressed to 15-0 with this win, and 15-0 with 15 finishes, and he's yet to see a third round in his UFC career at least. Let me just double check. Sorry, you know, 16-0, 8 knockouts, 8 submissions. He's gone to a third round once back in 2018, but you know he hasn't seen a third round since. You know, first round stoppage, second round stoppage, first round, second round, first round, and obviously, you know, we saw against Neil Magny that second round stoppage with sort of 2 seconds to go. He picked up a performance of the night bonus for that, and rightfully so. Umar Nurmagomedov, dominant again. What can you expect? You know, again, it's not all about how many strikes you land, but my God, significant strikes landed by Umar Nurmagomedov, 74. His opponent Nate Maness, 2 strikes landed. He landed 2 significant strikes through 15 minutes. You know, judges' scorecards 30-27, 30-26, and 30-25. I'm leaning towards the 30-26 for sure. If not the 30-25, you know. An absolutely dominant mauling performance by Umar, and you know, he showed more on the feet than we've seen in recent times. I think you need to give him that big step up now in competition. You know, he's dominant again. It was never really in doubt. Unfortunately, we thought this would be a big step up in competition, or a step up at least, and it was. But he now needs an even bigger step up in competition. Unfortunately for Umar Nurmagomedov, he won't have time to have that sort of slow but sure rise to the top, because he is so good. You know, he has been so dominant in his UFC career thus far that he doesn't, you know, he can't just sort of, you know, meander his way through a career, which I'm sure he won't want to. But we're looking right at the top of the rankings now for Umar Nurmagomedov. So, you know, he needs to fight someone ranked considerably, you know, sort of, or at least regarded considerably higher than him. I'm just looking through the rankings on Tapology now. A Davy Grant fight wouldn't be a bad fight, you know. Ravian Paiva, who obviously lost on at the weekend, that wouldn't be a bad fight. Cody Stamann, you know, we've seen him fight one Nurmagomedov. He'd probably be willing to jump in there with another. You know, the sky's the limit for Umar Nurmagomedov at the moment, and it's certainly exciting because he is such a good prospect. But we can't talk any more about anything else other than UFC 276 now. You know, UFC 276 goes down this weekend. I believe it's from Las Vegas. I have to double check that now because I don't want to get that wrong. Yep, Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena, headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier for the UFC middleweight title. It's fight week, international fight week, baby. You know, let's get going. There's 2 title fights on this card, and I went through every fight on the card, and there is the best card of the year without a doubt. You know, every single fight has some sort of narrative surrounding it. So I'll just go through every fight on the card, give you the little sort of narrative about each and every fight on the card, like I say, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth on the co-main and main event, because that's the ones that, you know, everybody cares about. But yeah, you know, starting off, going on the schedule that Tapology have got, Jessica Rose Clark opens up the card, and she's looking to get back in the win column. You know, last time out against Stephanie Egg, it was a disappointing loss. You know, she was on a 2-fight win streak. She'd beaten, I think it was Sarah Alpha, brutal knee against the fence, split her open and finished her. And then she beat Jocelyn Edwards by decision. She then faced Stephanie Egger and dominated, finishing the first round. It's disappointing for Jessie Jess. So she'll be looking to get back in the win column, and her opponent, Storilenko, she's looking to stay in the UFC, from what I understand. I just want to double check, but I'm pretty sure she's never won in the UFC. She came in against Yana Kunitskaya at bantamweight, then faced Julia Alvia at bantamweight and Alexis Davis. I think that was at bantamweight as well, and she's yet to actually pick up a win in the UFC. With that being said, I think this one should be this one should be this one is also this one's also at bantamweight. I know Jessica Rose Clark did debate going down to flyweight. I thought Jessica Rose Clark tried to hand at flyweight, but no, I must have been mistaken. No, bantamweight for Jessica Rose Clark against Julia Storilenko. Keep an eye on that one, because these are two women. Jessica Rose Clark's got some of the slickest stand up that we've seen, and Storilenko is fighting for her life to stay in the UFC. Up next, you got Brad Tavares enjoying the longest winning streak of his career since 2018, since he ran into Izzy. I think it was the tough finale main event. He's facing Duplessis, who's undefeated in the UFC's 2-0, 2 knockouts. He's had 4 fights cancelled, and he is there to be hit. If Brad Tavares can keep his cool and sort of lay it on quite thick, he's going to start the night off well for the Hawaiian contingent, going into Max Holloway's fight. Next up on the card, we've got Jessica Uriah versus Macey Barber. Barber replaced Casey O'Neill, who I believe tore ACL. And we could see a changing of the guard at flyweight. Jessica Uriah's been there. She's done it. She's got the t-shirt. She's competed for the belt at flyweight. Obviously, we all know how that went at the hands of Wolf. I'll say at the feet of the champion Valentina Shevchenko. She's without a win in the last 3, losing to Cynthia Calvillo, losing to Joanne Calderwood, losing to Jennifer Meyer, all by decision. She hasn't been finished since that loss to Valentina. I expect this one to go the distance as well. I don't think Macey Barber's quite got the power that she maybe that we all thought when she was on the come up. But this could very much be a changing of the guard, or we'll see that Jessica Uriah has just got the experience, and it'll be too much for Macey Barber. Macey, after bursting onto the scene like she did, wanting to be the youngest ever UFC champion, beating John Jones's record. She started her UFC career 3-0 with 3 finishes. She then obviously had that loss to Roxanne Modafferi, and then she had that was arguably as a result of the injury, but she then returned after over a year out against Alexa Grasso, and if you remember, that was the strange fight where she was just seemed to be out of range for the entire time. She then returned against Miranda Maverick and Montella Del Rosa, defeated both of those women by decision. Macey Barber is a good fighter. She steps into this one on, I wouldn't say late notice. It's a short notice fight. It's not late notice, because Casey has been out of the fight for a number of probably over a month now. But I think if Macey Barber's keys to victory in this would just be to work the takedown, get Jessica Uriah to the ground, and look to dominate it down there. And we'll see how that one plays out. Next up is one that I feel that it's finally happening. Uriah Hall versus Andrea Muniz. It seems like this one's been booked multiple times. I hope it's only been booked once previously, and Hall was the one that had to pull out of that fight, I believe. Muniz is looking really dangerous throughout his UFC career thus far. This is a classic striker versus grappler. Hall will not want to go to the ground with Muniz. Muniz will not want to look to stand with Hall for too long, in my opinion, and he shouldn't, because Uriah Hall, we all know what Uriah Hall can do when he's left standing on the feet. With that being said, his last time out against Sean Strickland, he was badly dominated. and we'll go on to talk about Sean Strickland later on in the show. But yeah, he was badly dominated in that fight, and it was a strange fight. He just seemed to, Sean Strickland kept it standing with Uriah Hall, and you just overwhelmed him, and he couldn't seem to get anything really going, which is credit to Sean Strickland's pacing and his relentlessness, but must have been frustrating for Uriah Hall and fans of Uriah Hall and Uriah Hall's team. I think Andre Muniz probably gets this one done. He 15 submission finishes, 4 finishes by knockout, hasn't been defeated since 2016. Beat Eric Anders last time out by armbar, beat Jacare by armbar, beat Fabinski by armbar. There's a trend here going on. I could probably see Uriah Hall getting submitted in this one, and Muniz really taking that step into the, it's a middleweight showcase this weekend, and rightfully so. We will look ahead now to the next fight. So as per, take this with a pinch of salt because it is what it is. But Jim Miller versus Donald Cerrone, I think might even be taking place at welterweight. Tapology has it as a welterweight fight with Cerrone taking it on short notice. It's a rematch of their 2014 bout where Cerrone won. They're both tied on 23 UFC wins. Whoever wins this obviously goes ahead of the other. Watch it be a draw now, but Cerrone finally getting to step back in there after having all those fights with Joe Lazone cancelled or scrapped last minute. And Jim Miller was obviously, gearing up to fight Bobby Green, who's a boxer. He's now got to deal with Donald Cerrone, who's much more well-rounded than Bobby Green. Bobby Green, we're not quite sure. It must have been a pretty bad injury because Bobby Green doesn't just withdraw from fights, willy-nilly, as it were. But it's a fight between two veterans, which, are any of them going to be anywhere near the top? No, but this is like the Legends League that people speak of, and I'm here for it. I don't mind that fight at all. It should be a great fight, and it'll be an exciting fight. As will the next fight on the card, Ian Gary facing Gabe Green. Is Ian Gary's toughest test of his career thus far? Green's looked good, especially last time out in April. A tough test for Gary, and we'll see if the hype train does finish here. Because if you remember, he won his first UFC bout. I think it was Jordan Wright by knockout in the first round in MSG, and then he went the distance in his second fight, which is nothing to be ashamed of, going the distance in your second ever UFC fight. He's only 9-0. He's 24 years old. Against Darian Weeks, it was. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be this absolutely, there's a lot of hype surrounding Ian Gary, and if you're going to progress to that sort of next level of hype train, as it were, you've got to be finishing guys. Gabe Green is not an easy guy to finish. He's only got 3 losses on his record. A decision loss to Daniel Rodriguez in his UFC debut. And then he was knocked out by Jaylen Turner in 2017, and he was knocked out by another guy in 2016. But with that being said, it's not easy to finish him. We've seen him take some big shots. He fought Philip Rowe. Gabe Green's going to be a tough test for Ian Gary, and if Ian Gary can get through it, it's certainly a step in the right direction. The only word I have written down for the next fight, Robbie Lawler versus Bryan Barberena, is war. These two guys don't know how to take a step back. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a fun fight. Robbie Lawler coming off that win against Nick Diaz, when he broke the stretch of four straight losses. And Bryan Barberena, he seems to fight all the time. He fought last time out in March against Matt Brown, fight of the night. He got a fight of the night against Jason Witt. He got a fight of the night against Vicente Luque in 2019. That was potentially fight of the year in 2019. That was only in February. I remember people talking about it, worried that the fight of the year was done and dusted already in February. He's two fight winning streak against Darian Weeks and Matt Brown, and Vicente Luque is a fun fighter. He comes, like I say, he doesn't know how to take a step back. He will walk forward, and if Lawler can deal with that pressure, I think Lawler probably wins it. He's got far more higher level expertise than Bryan Barberena, but don't be surprised for Brian Barber to really put it on Robbie Lawler and look to even finish Lawler. We saw Nick Diaz put it on Robbie Lawler in the first round of their fight back. I can't quite remember when that was. I'll just double check that because I don't want to get that. Yeah, Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler, September last year on the Volkanovski Ortega undercard. The fight finished, in the third round, but in that first round, there was 107, 183 strikes thrown combined. Lawler threw 107, Nick Diaz threw 176. So it's 283 strikes combined thrown between the two guys. If Brian Barberena can put it on Robbie Lawler like Nick Diaz did, we could see Brian Barberena have a lot of success. Moving on, we've got Brad Riddell versus Jaylen Turner. I think this is a phenomenal fight. This is got fight of the night written all over it. Riddell returned after that Rafael Fiziev loss. When he obviously lost, I think it was a spinning wheel kick, a returning side kick to that Fiziev threw on Brad Riddell. And Jaylen Turner's coming off 4 good wins, all of which have been via finish. Turner can really make a name for himself at 155 pounds with a win here at UFC 276. Brad Riddell can, really kickstart. We had Carlos Ulberg kickstart the sort of city kickboxing train, as it were, this weekend with that first round knockout. And Brad Riddell really should be looking to get a dominant win against Jaylen Turner to really, continue the city kickboxing train ahead of the co-main and main events. I think the winner of this one really positions themselves well in the rankings. As it stands, I don't believe Jaylen Turner's ranked. I think Brad Riddell is probably still ranked. So he's ranked number 14. Jaylen Turner with a win will take Brad Riddell's ranking and get that number 14 spot. He's got 2 losses in his UFC career thus far. He stepped in at late notice against Vicente Luque. That was up at welterweight, and then he's also lost to Matt Frivola back in 2019. Since then, though, he's got a 2 TKOs and 2 submissions. Last time out against Jamie Mullarkey, an absolutely phenomenal finish. Phenomenal performance by Jaylen Turner to beat Jamie Mullarkey, who we know is always game. We then go to the main card, so that's headlining the prelims. We then go to the main card, and the main card already has lost a fight. Lauren Murphy pulled out of her fight against Misha Tate for, reasons that are unknown at the moment. And it's understood that the UFC are looking, I think it was Marta Ramundi said that the UFC are looking for a replacement fight for Misha Tate. Misha Tate really needs a fight and could really do with a high level flyweight. Would it be the worst thing in the world to give her a Jessica Eye or a Macey Barber, who, these are 2 girls that will make weight? I think either of those girls take that fight, especially Macey Barber, to test herself against Misha Tate, a legend of the division. This is going to be Misha Tate's flyweight debut. Obviously, we saw her last time out in November when she lost to Ketlen Vieira in that main fight night main event, and it's gutting for Misha Tate. I heard her talking on Errol Hawani's show a few weeks ago, and she was pumped. She thought a win against Lauren Murphy here sets her up for a fight against Valentina Shevchenko. Now that fight's been cancelled, we don't know. We don't know what will happen. Whether she'll be able to find a late notice replacement. Like I said, in my opinion, Macey Barber or Jessica Eye should be rallying for that fight, because a win over Jessica Eye, a win over Macey Barber doesn't do as much for her as a win over Misha Tate, and likewise with Barber, a win over Jessica Eye doesn't do as much for her as a win over Misha Tate does. So if I was Macey Barber, I'd be contacting Sean Shelby and Dana White and saying, look, put me in against Tate. Don't worry about Jessica Eye, put me in against Tate. But the main card opens up with Pedro Munoz versus Sean O'Malley. Finally, a step up in competition for Sean O'Malley, and yet I think Pedro Munoz is too slow to trouble sugar. he's on a 2-fight losing streak at the moment, Pedro Munoz, and he's lost 4 of his last 5. With that being said, he's never been finished, and O'Malley will test that chin of Pedro Munoz. Sean O'Malley, let's not deny it. He's had a fairly straightforward, the toughest test of his career before this, Marlon Vera. We all know how that turned out. He lost. Since that Marlon Vera loss, he's fought Thomas Almeida, who, had no place being in there with Sean O'Malley. And unfortunately, he lost 3 of his last 4 fights. Thomas Almeida ahead of that Sean O'Malley defeat. He then was scheduled to face Lewis Smoker, and Smoker was replaced with Chris Martino, and then he fought Piver, who is a flyweight going up to bantamweight. At least Pedro Munoz is a legitimate bantamweight, and he won't have stepped in on short notice, and he's not sort of Thomas Almeida-esque. Eddie Wineland, Jose Quinones. Sean O'Malley has had a very easy ride of it thus far for his skill level. Pedro Munoz will certainly test that, but 37 or 35, I apologize, 35. Pedro Munoz is slightly longer in the tooth. And, he's, let me just look at the reach, because, Sean O'Malley, we know how well Sean O'Malley uses his reach. Yeah, Pedro Munoz 5'6", Sean O'Malley 5'11". Pedro Munoz 65-inch reach. Sean O'Malley has a 7-inch reach advantage at 72 inches, and Sean O'Malley knows how to use that reach. I think Sean O'Malley picks Munoz off. I think it probably goes to decision because Munoz is so gritty, and he probably gets a takedown maybe in the 3rd round and manages to just stop the onslaught from Sean O'Malley. But it might be quite a long night for Pedro. As we said, Misha Tate and Lauren Murphy's off the card now, so the next card on the fight is Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira. It's the number 1 contenders fight for the middleweight belt. Simple as that. Strickland is the volume guy. Pereira is the power guy. Pereira, obviously, we know what he can do, and we've seen him. This is a huge step up in competition for Alex Pereira. It's 5 fights, 5 professional MMA fights. Obviously, he's got plenty of experience kickboxing. Just ask Israel Adesanya. But at the end of the day, he's had 2 fights in the UFC, and he's already, pretty much thereabouts in a title picture. This isn't like Jiri Prochazka, who had a huge career outside of the UFC, rising champion, and then comes over to the UFC. He hasn't got an awful lot of grappling experience as Pereira, and luckily for him, Sean Strickland is a hard-headed guy who will walk forward. He'll be in your face. He'll trash talk you. And we've seen as of late, Sean Strickland's looked good, very good. Nordine, since losing to Zaleski in 2018, Nordine Taleb, Jack Marshman, Brendan Allen, Christoph Jotto, Uriah Hall that we mentioned earlier, and Jack Hermanson last time out in February. He is a volume guy, Sean Strickland, and he can throw volume, and he can throw strikes for days, Significant strikes landed per minute, 5.53 with an accuracy of just 40% for Sean Strickland. But for Sean Strickland, they don't all have to land. They don't. Against Jack Hermanson, he threw 338 strikes. Against Uriah Hall, of course, he's a 5-round fight. Against Uriah Hall, he fought through 472 strikes. His last 3-round fight against Christoph Jokto, he threw 182 strikes. Against Jack Marshman, for example, he threw 227 strikes. He is a volume guy, and then we compare that to Alex Pereira. Pereira went 3 full rounds last time out. He threw, 239 strikes, landing 165. 60% accuracy is phenomenal, and he can mix it up, and we know that he can mix it up. Just against, Alex Pereira's last fight against Bruno Silva, 60 shots to the body, 41 strikes. 60 shots to the head, 41 strikes to the body, 7 to the legs. I think it would benefit Alex Pereira to work the legs of Sean Strickland and try and slow him down a bit, because he will just walk forward for the entirety of this fight. And, for me, this fight sees whether Sean Strickland can overround Pereira, get the victory over, it's going the distance. Sean Strickland's not knocking Pereira out. Pereira may knock Sean Strickland out, but I don't think Strickland has the power to knock Pereira out. Or are we going to get potentially a Pereira Izzy rematch if he gets the win? He will call for Israel Adesanya if he gets the win here, and rightfully so. So now we're moving on to the co-main event. It's a trilogy between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovsky for the UFC Featherweight Championship. Now, this is a strange one because it's quite rare that we get a trilogy where one man has lost 2 fights. Max is 0-2 in the series, and yes, the second fight was very close, but Alex, ultimately got his hand raised. It's the right time to do it, in my opinion. Obviously they had the immediate rematch after their first fight. They had the immediate rematch, which Max deserved. But we've broken down this fight so many times, and what do we know? We know that Max Holloway is, again, like Sean Strickland, is a volume guy. He hasn't got that sort of power on his shots. He doesn't sit into his shots too well. He's got phenomenal takedown defense, got a brilliant chin. He's never been knocked down. He's got experience over 5 rounds. He's got a great gas tank. What do we know about Volkanovski? Probably the best feints in the game, other than maybe, in Israel Adesanya. He's beginning to sit down on those shots a lot more. He knocked out Korean Zombie. That was just the performance of his career, in my opinion, last time out against Korean Zombie. And this is why I said it's the right time to do it. Each guy's had 2 fights since they fought each other last. Brian Ortega and Korean Zombie, both victories for the champion Volkanovski, and that beating of Calvin Kattar, and then the fight of the year contender against Yair Rodriguez for Max. What can we say about this fight? Expect, in my opinion, to see a savage potential fight of the year contender where both guys leave a part of themselves in the octagon, rather than a point fight like the other 2 fights have seemed to be. Volkanovski wants to put an end. He wants to put a full stop, and he wants to decisively, let the world know that he is the better fighter in this one. And for Holloway, he'll know that it's all or nothing. If he's going into the final couple of rounds, let's say he loses the first 3 rounds, he will go into those final 2 rounds knowing that he needs a finish, because he can't go 0-3 in the series against Volkanovski and expect to ever get a title shot as long as Volkanovski holds the belt. It simply won't happen. I think this fight's going to be absolutely phenomenal, and I won't give you my official pick yet because I don't know it. I'm leaning towards the champion ever so slightly, but I'm a Holloway fan. I love the way Holloway fights. He's always exciting, and you always get those sort of pre-fight nerves whenever Holloway or Volkanovski step in there, because they're both such great guys, and I think I think they're going to go to war. I'm really excited, and again, City Kickboxing. If Brad Riddell can get it done after Carlos Ulberg got it done this weekend, Brad Riddell gets it done on the undercard, Alexander Volkanovski gets it done in the co-main event, he'll carry that momentum into the main event for his teammate Israel Adesanya. Izzy is a huge favourite against Jared Cannonier, and rightfully so. No disrespect to Cannonier, but he's the 2 guys that he's faced are nowhere near the level of Israel Adesanya. Since the 2 guys he's faced at middleweight since losing to Robert Whittaker, I should say, are nowhere near the level of Adesanya. Calvin Gastelum did put up a great fight against Adesanya. Ultimately, was dominated in that final round, and then Derek Brunson. We can't take anything from the Derek Brunson fight because we just simply don't know what. We simply can't compare the Derek Brunson fight and the Israel Adesanya fight, because they're completely different styles. Derek Brunson came out and relentlessly looked for the takedown and looked to control Cannonier, and then Cannonier was able to finish a very tired Derek Brunson. I've written a keys to victory for Jared Cannonier, and I'll link the article down below. I'm very proud of this piece because it's a good piece. It's tough to find keys to victory for Jared Cannonier. Unfortunately, it sounds like I'm being disrespectful. I really don't mean to be, but Israel Adesanya is so good. For Jared Cannonier, he needs to slam the leg kick. He needs to really, really work the leg kick. We saw against Robert Whittaker that he was able to do that. And we saw, we've seen slight weaknesses in Adesanya's game. When he goes to throw a high kick and the opponent backs out of weight, he'll square up ever so slightly or show his offside. And that's where Cannonier really needs to capitalize. Paulo Costa almost was able to do it against Izzy when he sort of bull rushed him, but I think that was in the first round. But Jared Cannonier is absolutely imperative that he slams that leg kick, because otherwise he's not going to be able to slow the champion down, in my opinion. He's not going to be able to slow him down with strikes to the body because Izzy's too elusive. He's not going to be able to slow him down with, wrestling, because that simply isn't his style. He has to slam that leg kick. He has to slam the leg kick to slow Izzy down, to get Izzy a little bit more flat-footed, and to have any chance of winning. He averages 0.23 takedowns per 15 minutes. Obviously, it's a 25-minute fight, but that just tells you how often he wrestles. Barely at all. His second key to victory is don't bite on the feints of Adesanya. Yes, Adesanya is going to throw a hell of a lot of feints, like all the city kickboxing guys do. But unfortunately for Jared Cannonier, he bites on an awful lot of feints. We saw against Robert Whittaker a little, it's my piece, I keep on referring back to it because this is pretty much, they are his keys to victory. But against when Jared Cannonier fought Robert Whittaker in the first round, Robert Whittaker just threw a jab. Of course, it wasn't a feint, but it was just a jab. It was quite a lazy jab. It was kind of out of range. Jared Cannonier, both hands came up. He backed off. He took a step back and he reset and he circled out. You can't do that against Israel Adesanya because Izzy will make those reads. As soon as he throws a jab and sees Cannonier backing up to his left, he'll throw the jab and slam the right high kick or something to that effect. Jared Cannonier cannot bite on the feints of Israel Adesanya. But with that being said, Izzy's one of the best feinters in the game. We saw against Paulo Costa. I keep on looking over to my screen because I have my article up. In the first round, he slams a leg kick into Costa, and then he's been slamming the leg kick into Costa throughout the first couple of minutes of the fight. Then he dummies a leg kick against Costa, and Costa brings his leg out to check. And then as soon as he gets his leg back in position, Izzy slams a leg kick. So I think this may be a battle of leg kicks. But again, another key to victory for Cannonier is do not bite on the feints. And the final key to victory for Cannonier, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, is don't hook with the champion. He cannot get excited about sort of pinning Izzy down and looking to hook with Israel Adesanya, because we've seen in favor of Adesanya and against Cannonier that it's a quality that Cannonier doesn't really possess or is weaker in, whereas Izzy is phenomenal in. We saw against Robert Whittaker in their first fight, the two got into a hooking exchange. Israel Adesanya finished the fight, or dropped Robert Whittaker and then finished the fight. We saw against Paulo Costa, the two got into an exchange. Izzy throws a big looping overhand sort of hook. It's an overhand, but it comes around, so it's more like a hook. Lands on Costa, drops Costa, finishes Costa in the second. In I think it was Jared Cannonier's UFC debut against Sean Jordan. Yes, it was. Yes, it's at heavyweight, so these guys hit a hell of a lot harder than anybody. But he tried to do what Izzy did and come over the top of Sean Jordan's right hand, and was knocked out. This tells you everything you need to know. Do not hook with the champion. And I think, my official pick is I think Izzy finishes it maybe round 4, round 5, or just cruises to a boring decision victory, similar to sort of Marvin Vettori. I think Marvin Vettori's fight, as well as Paulo Costa's, are a good blueprint for Israel Adesanya, who, Jared Cannonier will come, he will walk forward, he will meet Izzy in the centre and look to push him back and unload when he gets on the fence. Who doesn't try to do that to Israel Adesanya? Unless Jan Blachowicz just sort of steps back and looks to take him down. But like we said, wrestling isn't really in the wheelhouse of Jared Cannonier. So, I think Izzy gets it done. I think he gets it done pretty easily. He's been talking a lot in the lead up to this fight how it's going to be an absolute spectacle, an absolute show. So we'll have to see how that one goes. But I'm certainly excited for UFC 276. Like I say, I think it's the best fight card of the year. MMA Soccer will have staff picks, previews, results, post-fight, pre-fight. We'll be all over it all week. So be sure to keep it locked to the site. I myself won't be here for the podcast next Monday. However, I think Tim's back next Monday. If not, we at some point will be breaking down the UFC 276 card, even if it's slightly late, Tuesday or Wednesday, because it's such a blockbuster card. It will have so many talking points that can be guaranteed. So keep an eye out on the YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe as well, because that really does help us out. This week on the site, like I said, we'll be all over UFC 276. We'll have a UAE Warriors 30 and 31 preview up on the site. Again, Nate Freeman is smashing the live coverage. We had him at PFL this week and Karate Combat. And he's traveling all over America, and he's at PFL 6 this weekend, this Friday night. PFL 6, Kayla Harrison's on the cards. Julia Budd did have to withdraw from that, so I think she's fighting Caitlin Young, which is a shame. I would have liked to see Julia Budd versus Kayla Harrison. It would have been the toughest test of Harrison's career thus far, but it is what it is. Roy McDonald's on the card, and so is Ray Cooper III. So without a doubt, do not miss anything that MMA Soccer has to offer, because it is all quality content. And like I said, my preview, sort of breaking down the main event, will be out probably Monday or Tuesday. I'll link it in the description below so you guys can check that out. I'll link my preview to Shavkat's win, because that's worth giving a read over as well. Don't think just because the fight's done that you shouldn't sort of go look and see how we predicted the fight might play out. But yeah, keep it locked to MMA Soccer, because it's there are some quality writers at MMA Soccer, and the content this week especially is going to be right up there. We're going to have previews for pretty much every fight on the card, especially all the fights on the main card, and we'll have an overall card preview as well. So yeah, keep it locked to MMA Soccer, and I'll catch you next time.